What great fortune is this, to have come to the house of the Lord. His children are playing out their roles for him, so even their liquid laughter, it is holy. Surely this is the home of the Christ. Surely this is the home of the Christ. What grand household is this? Who is the host and who is the guest? Each visitor receiving precious gifts unknown. The greatest treasure is to know this home is your own. Truly a gift from the Christ. Truly a gift from the Christ. What great fortune is this? We have come to the house of the Lord. He is standing in the doorway with his arms open wide, beckoning each traveler to step inside. Truly he is the Christ. Truly the Father made him.
When Baba asked me after arranging our marriage and all, lots of letter correspondence was going up and down, Baba had asked me to come and visit Mirazal. That was like, it came in sometime in September, me and my father, and left in October back to Dehradun, and then came back again in December for the wedding. And that time when I saw Baba last when I was 4 years old, when Baba in 1954 came to Dehradun. Now 13, 14 years later, I was asked to be in Mirazal, to stay there for a couple of weeks. So when I reached Mirazal, all of a sudden, as I was coming closer, my heart started, all of a sudden it was like I'm meeting up now. It was my father's Baba, family Baba, as you have in Christian family, you're Christian, without going to church or anything, and that's why we were Baba lovers without really thinking that who Mir Baba and how he is and how beautiful or what is all about this thing. But as a 17-year-old young girl, I started all of a sudden, I said, my God, am I really going to see God? Is he God? It's really how it will be, how he will look, how he will be, And as I was coming closer and closer and closer to Mirazad, it's like nothing else existed, this was just completely like, my God, I'm going to see him now. So my father and myself reached in the evening, it was quite late, and we came from the men's side of course, Adi Senior was there. And I didn't know the layout where Baba's room should be or where this thing. And I saw this person sitting on the chair. And I said, Baba, just for a moment. And then I said, no, it's somebody else. And then I was introduced as a Kakabaria. That time Mandi was big. There was so many. And then I looked around and I said, Baba. And then, believe me, each Mandi looked like Baba just for a little while. And it was Baidu. And then this one and that one. Then I saw later on Francis Brevison sitting there, and even Dr. Duncan was there. And, there were so many of them. And then Erich comes. I called him my teddy bear. Even that day he looks like I'm wearing all that loose shorts and no shirt and all hairy and coming, And he said, go quickly because Baba's sleep time. And to me, I was seeing Baba everywhere by that time because, that I thought Mehrazad means Baba only. Then I was sent to ladies' side. And again, same thing, the ladies came out, there was a little welcome, Parsi way where they give you a little candy and this, that, other. And then Meera says, sorry Amrit, you have come late, you won't be able to see Baba because it's resting time. But that moment, even I heard the clap and never knew how Baba called, when he sends for people or something, it claps. But I realized Baba's clap was different, it was so beautiful, I guess. And that moment, all these ladies, Meera, Mani, Naja, Goher, all of them, they left me alone there, and they just, because as Baba's ordered, when I called, leave everything, and so they left me. And they went in, and a few minutes later, Meera came smiling, guess what? Baba said, you can come in. It was like a little relief, and I was told, you can't see Baba right now, because, I didn't know how to see him, how to behave, what to do. Say Jai Baba to Baba, and we were told no touching feet, like up North Indians, when you meet some elders, you kind of bow down or at least bend a little bit. And now I'm in Baba's room, and Baba was sitting on that bed where you all been, and that cushion was there, his feet were there, and I was brought not from the outside where we all go now to take darshan, but from Mehra's parlor, Mehra's sitting room side. So Baba's back and the side was there because door is there. And from there I saw an old person sitting in back, little ponytail with beautiful white sandal, but sitting like that. And I started looking around for Meher Baba, God there. I didn't see any God there. I just saw an old man sitting there. And I kind of stopped, and then I saw this hand asking me to come in front. And so Baba's hand went, so I came in front. And what I saw was very disappointing, kind of, I don't know if it's the right word, but that's how I was expecting maybe what we see in Hindu gods, all sparkles around and what I remember, what I've been seeing on photographs of this beautiful young Baba and his movies, he's walking around like king and beautiful young and just lovely long sadras, and here this little hunched up bundle is there on the bed. So I just went in front of that as I was asked to, so I did, and I felt all of a sudden very hot in that room. The tears started pouring, and I wanted to run away from that place. I missed Baba. I really missed, where's Baba? There's no Baba. And tears are pouring out, and I literally started moving slightly back. And that moment, Baba's hands went up like that, and I had no idea. And that embrace was like strong, healthy Meher Baba. My God, that it wasn't like sick old man. It was like the hug you want, like it was beautiful. And of course, my head couldn't be more than a minute there, maybe even less or something. It seems like I've been there for a long, long time. And then after that, he pulls my head back with the shoulders with like full strength and looked at my face and really felt, you human beings, what you make me go through every time. And really, even that moment is the person I felt. And all of a sudden, this beautiful Baba is sitting there. He looked so beautiful. He looked, glowing, his skin, his sadra is beautiful, transparent. You could see his body shimmering inside, and he just didn't want to leave that room anymore. He just wanted to be there. But Baba said, Amit, you've been traveling and you look tired. Go and take rest, and then tomorrow morning we will meet again. So that's just a little sharing with you how it was just just beautiful to be with that moment with him. Yeah. And thank you for asking, because it's always nice to feel him with you.
I am all for maker, and he is for me. Far closer than my own breath, I know him to be. I am dying inside, but my pain only makes me happy. I am his, it is he who lives in me. My heart is filled with aching, yet sweet is my pain.
My heart is filled with aching, yet sweet is my pain.
For this fire is the harbinger of rain.
For this fire is the harbinger of rain.
When you are with me, how can I complain? I am all for him, and he is for me. Far closer than my own breath, I know him to be. I am dying inside, but my pain only makes me happy. I am his, it is he who lives in me. Remembrance feeds on my moments, each in turn.
Remembrance feeds on my moments, each in turn.
Yet the more that I am possessed, the more I yearn.
Yet the more that I am possessed, the more I yearn.
To be yours only is my one concern. I am all for him, and he is for me. Far closer than my own breath, I know him to be. I am dying inside, but my pain only makes me happy. I am his, it is he who lives in me. When you are all my desiring, how shall I pray?
When you are all my desiring, how shall I pray?
Your matchless loveliness steals my tongue away.
Your matchless loveliness steals my tongue away.
Between us there, words should hold no sway. I am all for him, and he is for me. Far closer than my own breath, I know him to be. I am dying inside, but my pain only makes me happy. I am his, it is he who lives in me. Since wine distills from each blood drop, my heart has bled.
Since wine distills from each blood drop, my heart has bled.
1,000 tears remain unshed.
1,000 tears remain unshed.
When I have died, your feet on rest my head. I am all for him, and he is for to be. I am dying inside, but my pain only makes me happy. I am His, it is He who lives in me. I am His, it is He who lives in me.
Baba lovers would come and greet Mera. The first time after Baba dropped his body and when people started coming in, especially our Indians, they have a tendency to shed tears for the dead. So they will all come and meet Mera and say, oh, now Baba is gone, what will you do? And they start crying. And we have to pull them out from Mera because Mera was the one who was feeling the pangs of that separation. Not them. I felt it. I don't. They may be feeling it, but I always felt that they should be consoling Mera, and not they should be consoled by Mera. But Mera was so brave. I tell you, she was saying, "No, Baba is with us. No, don't do it. Don't cry. Baba is with us." And that was the lesson that I heard, and that okay, she was the one who is really feeling, and we are the ones who have to protect. So later on, we would always say, don't cry. Before they would approach Mera, we would always make them understand that please don't cry in front of Mera. Baba is with you, and tell Mera, oh, how you enjoyed Baba, how you were with Baba. Tell her something that it will gladden her heart. It is not going to be easy for Mera to accept from everyone the crying and sobbing and all that. So that was the very first thing. And later on, in our Baba people, if their daughters are not getting married, so they would come to Mera and say, Mera, please pray to Baba, please pray to Baba that my daughter gets married. She's not of a marriageable age, and what will we do, if she doesn't get married? Because in India, it is something like the girl should get married. So they would come and tell Mera about it. And I tell you, within an instant, she would just turn towards a big Baba picture and pray to Baba. So it means her selfless love, not for herself, but for others. She would do that. She would always, and then after some time when we heard that, I always felt that Baba is the one who will always listen to Mera. Because she was doing it from her heart, not superficially, not like I should say about myself, that I want this and I should ask Baba. No. This is what she used to ask Baba for the others. Even for sometimes for the children. People would come and, I'm expecting a child or something, and then Mera would tell them, don't eat this, don't eat that. It's not good for you. As if she had had so many children and she was trying to tell everyone what they should be doing. And then sometimes some would say that I'm not getting any children, I've been married for 2-3 years now and this is happening. And so then, and not the girls will not say anything, but the girls' parents would come because they felt that suppose she doesn't get children and the husband would drive her away from home. That was the fear. It's not like in Western countries. So Mera would definitely tell Goel, do something out there. And Goel used to do that for many. She would ask them, consult them, and say them, you should do this, do that. And she would give some pills or something or the other. Every time. I think many must have observed it who were with Mera in the very early years. When Baba lovers would come, and especially the girls, Mera would take them out in the garden and show them around everything. So this is the tree that Baba planted, and this is the one, there were 5 mango trees that were grown by Mera because Baba had given them the pits after eating the fruits. And Baba said, now Mera, you plant them. And there were all 5 of them there. And later on, there's only one now. At the moment, there's only one now. But Mera planted from those other trees, whatever mango she got, she planted the others and she would give out to everyone.
1971, I think This was second anniversary. Dr. Jack Roseman, I think he was from Baltimore or Boston, I don't know. He had come with the third group, and he was just sitting near Baba's Samadhi on a bench. I was there with him. He was a totally paraplegic, Both of his legs were absolutely out. He used to wear shoes. He would just take out those shoes only when he was sleeping, that was all. This guy was a little bit disturbed. And I don't know, Eric comes by and says, "Well, Jack, how is it that you are here?" Well, Eric, what to say, your volunteers don't, they say you have to
Don't allow him
take out your shoes, otherwise you cannot come in.
inside the Samadhi.
You cannot come inside the Samadhi. And Eros was furious, but he didn't say anything. He says, "Doc, come with me." And we all went. And then, because Eros was there, no volunteer was able to say anything. So then, the volunteer were asked as to who said that he cannot go inside. Says, why are we doing this? Because we
Why we are taking out the shoes?
because we don't want that the Samadhi should get dirty. Am I right? So yes. So all right, if that is the case, then you think twice about it. Before you say anything to any Baba lover, whether to enter into the Samadhi or not. If you think that Baba's Samadhi will be dirty and all that, allow this gentleman to go inside, and then if you feel that it is dirty, go inside with a slop and clean it up. And if you feel that it is still dirty, get some cloth with water and all that and clean up the whole Samadhi. But see to it that beloved Baba's Samadhi is open to all and everyone, even the lepers if they come. And because Baba has so many lepers, so even if they have come, and see to it that you don't tell them no, don't tell them that they cannot enter into the Samadhi. That time was the one I said, this is Erach. Because Erach, with all his devotion to beloved Baba, was something so much practical that you could not just take it as to what he was. He was everything. He was also, I will tell you, once it so happened that Baba, something happened, and Baba had not taken his pills and all that, and he was a little bit furious. Erach was furious. And when Gaima, his mother, she got so angry with her. She says, "Do you know who Baba is?"
She's telling you that.
He says, "Yes, I know. Baba is Baba, I know. But you see, sometimes, he just does, makes us crazy. He just crazy." So, says, at times, it happens
And to be strict with Baba.
that we have to be strict with Baba also. This was it.
Discourses are a collection of individual essays that originally got published serially. There was a magazine, probably a lot of people are acquainted with the Meher Baba Journal. When Baba's Western disciples first came to stay with him at Nasik and Mehrabad, there was a lot of talk about starting a journal connected with Meher Baba. And this was launched in 1938. But one of the conditions that his disciples put on him was that they wanted to have something from him. So Baba agreed to this. And each of the issues of the Meher Baba Journal had one discourse. So the first 51 got published this way. And they were also getting published at the same time each year. The discourses from that year's issues of the Meher Baba Journals got collected into a volume and was published at the end of a year as a volume. So after 4 years of the Meher Baba Journal with 12 issues a year, there were 4 volumes that were also published by 1943. And then the Meher Baba Journal was discontinued, but apparently there were some discourses left over because a 5th volume of the 5-volume set, as we're calling it, got published. So in other words, most of the discourses were published in the Meher Baba Journal, and at the same time they were coming out as collected volumes. So the first complete set of the discourses was in this 5-volume set that was finished by 1943. There are 69 discourses in that. And these were originally, it seems Baba dictated them, would give points to one of his disciples, various of his disciples, but particularly one of them, Dr. C.D. Deshmukh, who some people here might have met. He died in the early 80s, who was a professor of philosophy at Nagpur University. And Baba would give points and he would write them up. And other people too were involved. I know Adi was involved with at least one of the discourses, and perhaps other people were too. It seems that a lot of people might have been involved in different ways. So they weren't literally word for word by Baba, but Baba gave the essential points and seems to have proofread them at the end. So this is when they originated, at the first real phase of contact between East and West. And one other thing to say about this is that in the editorial meetings connected with the Meher Baba Journal in those days, they specifically said that we won't use older material by Baba. Other things of his had been published in earlier magazines, and other unpublished material was there, like Infinite Intelligence, for example. But they actually said we won't use this material because it was composed for Indians and Baba's own close mandalay. This will be new material. So this was a new phase in Baba's work, and these discourses belong to that. So that's how they originated. After 10 or 15 years, there has always been a certain criticism of Dr. Deshmukh. Anyone's literary style will have its fans and critics, but his style was a bit flowery sometimes. Although I'm full of praise for Deshmukh. I mean, he did a magnificent piece of work with these discourses. But sometimes the sentences are very elaborate. So one of Baba's Western followers, disciples, Charles Purdom, asked to be able to publish them in England in a somewhat condensed version. And Baba referred the question to Deshmukh, who at first said no, and then said yes. And Purdom did publish them under a title, God to Man, Man to God. So if any of you have seen that book, it is essentially the Discourses, only 60 of the 69, and they're edited, they're by far the most radical editing of the Discourses that's ever been done. They were really cut down quite a bit in chunks cut out. They were published with Baba's approval, and Bob Mulligan recalls Adi saying that Baba went over them, the whole thing word for word. That's what Adi said. So that was another major edition of the Discourses, a fair bit shorter.
Do we know what changed Deshmukh's mind?
No, probably just time passed, and he said, "Okay, let him." That's my guess. No, I've never heard. Then in the 1960s, Baba brought up the topic of the Discourses to Don Stevens, who a lot of you will know, where Baba asked, the short version of the story is he asked Don to work on a new edition of the Discourses, which was based on Deshmukh's version, not on Purdom's. So he went back to the original ones. And it was not nearly so radical in editing as Charles Purdom had done, but the prose style was somewhat simplified, and some points of content were changed a little bit. And that was published in 1967 as a 3-volume set. Some of us who came to Baba in the 70s would know the Discourses from that. There was still the feeling among some of, I guess, in India at the Trust, that some further stylistic editing was needed, and in the 1980s, then that was undertaken at the Trust by Erich Jesawala, Balna II, and Flag Chris. And once again, I'm giving you a history, but I would want to say the changes are really small. I mean, most people who aren't literary people really wouldn't care very much. And if you don't care very much, you really don't need to. This is not. But for literary people like me, it's very interesting.
Yeah. Not to belittle it, but it's not grand changes of content.
No, it isn't for them. It isn't.
Well,
Yeah.
If you were to put a percentage on that change.
Some chairs there if people are just coming in.
3% or something, It's like words or phrases, words or phrases here and there. If you're really into the literary qualities of something, you decidedly do notice it. But most people wouldn't. And there are some substantive changes. In fact, with the 7th edition, which resulted from this work by Erich and Ball and by Chris, which produced this, which is probably what most of you are familiar with, they did make some significant changes of content, mostly to make it conform with God Speaks. That was the rationale for the most part, where there were contradictions. Those are the sorts of changes that certainly those of us now would not presume to make. But with Erich in the picture, I would support it. And this is called the 7th edition of the Discourses. Now, in recent years, I'll advert a little bit to some of the controversies that have come up recently, although that's not our main topic here, but about 5-6 years ago, there have been some real serious criticisms of the 7th edition, partly on the grounds that Baba's words should not be altered after he had dropped his body. We have to protect Baba's words in the form in which he gave them during his physical lifetime, which is however, there can be different views on this, but it's a legitimate concern. I do feel it is a legitimate concern. So that came to us at the Trust, and we had to figure out what to do about this. And the decision made was that any of the editions of Baba's words published during his lifetime were eligible for republication with very minor editing, like we have a list of categories: capitalization or punctuation, non-substantive edits. And in addition to that, this edition is, we consider a valid edition, largely because of Erich's involvement. I'm one of the members of this committee, and to sort of prohibit the republication of an edition that Erich worked on is a decision that I am never going to make. I'll tell you that. It would be ludicrous. I mean, for the likes of me to be telling Erich you can't. So then that, there was a real group that was advocating very strongly for a return to the 6th edition, the 3-volume set, which this is a new version of. And there's been a bit of a controversy on that. And in fact, there was a pirate edition published of that. It was completely illegal. So, we've had these sparks flying in the Baba world and a lot of somewhat acrimonious back and forth on these topics. So we at the Trust then did proceed to republish the 6th edition as a 4-volume set with the original 3 volumes. And then a last volume with historical information, like what I've been talking about here.
And Ward wrote that, most of it.
A glossary, index, various appendices, and stuff like that. So this is then the external history of Baba's Discourses in brief. As I say, there's an 80-page expanded version of this history in this book. And some last words. I think a lot of Baba's lovers won't care about this. And as someone who's worked on it very intensively, my opinion is if you don't care, that's great. It really is not something that people who don't have that bent need to worry about. The flavor of the essence of Baba, in my view, comes through all the editions. But it does bring up questions of Baba's authorship. This is a huge topic that could warrant its own discussion, but I think a basic fact that will need to be recognized regarding the Discourses and just about everything else of Baba's that we know is that he wrote his books using his disciples as instruments. He would give points to Erich or to Deshmukh, and on that basis, they would write it up and he would review it. And he does not seem to have been all that particular. I mean, he gave his editors the scope to do their work, and didn't himself ever express an opinion, for example, on which of these editions of the Discourses is the valid one. So part of what I take the significance of that to be, my last word on this, is that what really matters is the essence of what he is giving. That's what Baba seems to me really to have cared about, more than the details of literary style, although he always did want his editors to do their very best.
Just a quick clarification.
Yeah.
The numbering, I'm confused, maybe you said it, but the numbering of the
editions.
4 and 5 seems to be missing.
I didn't explain that. The 5-volume set, those 5 volumes that got published between 1939 and 1943, they then got reprinted with minuscule changes, if any. And so the first 5 volumes are different reprints. They're basically reprints of the 5-volume set. And as a matter of fact, there weren't even 5 editions of those, but somehow the original version of this got the title of the 6th edition. So it's kind of meaningless. So what we've really got is the original publication in the Meher Baba Journal, a pretty exact reprint of those in the 5-volume set. The Charles Purdam's God to Man, Man to God, which was quite radically edited. The 6th edition in 1967, and then the 7th edition in 1987. And this in its content is, with tiny changes, a republication of the 6th edition.
Yeah. Thank you.
So can I just clarify also the ones that Don Stevens,
Right.
Baba asked him to
Right.
get them, and he read over them and approved them? Or we're assuming that?
We're assuming it, yeah. No one seems to actually have information, but it came to Baba, and he certainly gave his approval. Yeah, I should say actually the editors are Don Stevens and Ivy Deuce.
Okay.
There's another controversy on this. There are controversies on everything connected with discourses these days. So if you're a controversialist, you come to the right subject here.
We're into harmony.
Harmony, okay.
But Baba was in the body, and there was correspondence about the matter. So,
Yeah.
and in some ways, it could be said Baba signed off on it. That
You know, I'd like to just read a little thing from Dr. Deshmukh before moving on to the next topic, just because there's all this, you know, with different players in the scene and different points of view on this, that Deshmukh kind of gets forgotten a bit. And he is actually, of all Baba's disciples, the one who played by far the biggest role in this. And I'm a Dr. Deshmukh lover. I have the profoundest admiration for the work he did. I think it was magnificent. And there was just a little tape. This wasn't a speech he gave. Someone had a tape recorder, and these are just some informal, impromptu remarks, which I like. Glenn McGreeny found this. So Dr. Deshmukh has said, "It was my great privilege to be associated with the editing of Avatar Meher Baba's own discourses. Dr. Gunny Munsif was editing the Meher Baba Journal, and it was the desire of Avatar Meher Baba that at least one article by him should appear there. So the articles had to be prepared out of the explanations which he gave. And he had given me several explanations, and several explanations were sent to me also, means by post, so in person and in post. And often, when he would invite me, he used to give me explanations which were recorded by me. Sometimes the points were sent to me by post. All these were arranged by me and written down, typed, etc." And I personally buy the next sentence 100%. He says, "Baba used to take up my consciousness into his own, and it was his mind which was working when these discourses were being edited." Then there's a break, and he goes on. "In each article personally checked by Baba, and sometimes corrected before it went to press, or was approved of, and sometimes, and each issue of the Meher Baba Journal had one article of Baba. I don't think I was associated with the very first discourse, which, by the way, is probably the discourse on selfishness, which Adi did. Excepting the first discourse, I am associated with all the other discourses. Baba has been working through me so far as the discourse work is concerned, and it is all Baba's, not mine. Baba has done it. Myself, I have just been an instrument in it." And to my mind, I mean, Dr. Deshmukh is a rather comic character in many ways. He was the classic absent-minded professor, and there are so many funny stories about him. But I think, I buy this 100%, and I think the proof is in the pudding. Read those discourses. Look at how magnificent they are, and I think it's 100% true. And last note, Eric said the same thing. He also said...
Regarding his editing?
Regarding God Speaks. About the 9th and 10th parts of it, which he is the named author of. When people would say that, Eric would say, "Mine was the hand that moved," you know.
or
Right.
maybe the pen was mine,
Right.
but I cannot claim
Right.
anything else.
So these are the guys most connected with these two major works, and both of them testify that Baba did it. They were just instruments of his, as what they really experienced in the situation. So that's a little bit about the history of the discourses.
Sadhu, धन्यवाद मेरे, धन्यवाद मेरे, ओ मेरे, धन्यवाद मेरे, धन्यवाद मेरे, धन्यवाद मेरे। राम धन्यवाद, राम धन्यवाद, राम धन्यवाद, राम धन्यवाद। Krishna धन्यवाद, Krishna धन्यवाद, Krishna धन्यवाद, Krishna धन्यवाद। ओ मेरे धन्यवाद मेरे, धन्यवाद मेरे, धन्यवाद मेरे, ओ मेरे धन्यवाद मेरे, धन्यवाद मेरे, धन्यवाद मेरे। Buddha धन्यवाद, Buddha धन्यवाद, Buddha धन्यवाद, Buddha धन्यवाद। Jesus धन्यवाद, Jesus धन्यवाद, Jesus धन्यवाद, Jesus धन्यवाद। ओ मेरे धन्यवाद मेरे, धन्यवाद मेरे, धन्यवाद मेरे, ओ मेरे धन्यवाद मेरे, धन्यवाद मेरे, धन्यवाद मेरे। मोहम्मद धन्यवाद, मोहम्मद धन्यवाद, मोहम्मद धन्यवाद, मोहम्मद धन्यवाद। पापा धन्यवाद, पापा धन्यवाद, पापा धन्यवाद, पापा धन्यवाद। ओ मेरे धन्यवाद मेरे, धन्यवाद मेरे, धन्यवाद मेरे, ओ मेरे धन्यवाद मेरे, धन्यवाद मेरे, धन्यवाद मेरे, ओ मेरे धन्यवाद मेरे, धन्यवाद मेरे, धन्यवाद मेरे, ओ मेरे धन्यवाद मेरे, धन्यवाद मेरे, धन्यवाद मेरे।
When we shifted to Ahmednagar, Baba also, I opened the center there in Ahmednagar, my own center. And I also asked Meher Baba, Baba, you should come and you inaugurate my center. Because already the center was there in 1962, Ahmednagar center. That was for the public. But I opened my separate center. And Baba agreed. He said, yes, I will come to open your center. Baba came. Baba just we tied the ribbon. We gave scissor to Baba. Baba inaugurated the center. And then Baba entered into my center. And he asked me, how many members are there in your center? I said, Baba, I am only one member. But he said, if you are only one member, what about your mother and sister? I said, they never help me in my work, That's why I never allow them to come inside. Then Baba said, what type of the center is this? You are not allowing anybody. Then why I created the center? I said, Baba, I created the center for you. And now you are here. Baba said, that is true. But if it is my center, then it is your duty to allow your sister, your mother, and they also should take part in the prayer, or if you sing any bhajans, something, they can take part in that. Then I agreed. Then we performed Baba's Harti and Baba's prayer. Baba was there up to 15 minutes. He was there in that room, and then he left.
Last evening, there was a crescent moon telling me of a time of fullness, of perfect poverty, when I will no longer be dust dwelling in the street, but dust itself kissing my beloved's feet. Then the wine shopkeeper, seemingly knowing my desire, He had me call and gave me wine, which lit my heart's love fire. Then ordered musicians to tune their drums and strings. Poured wine for all, and the bird of song took wing. So we spent the night. I lost the seeker who no more sees. And now over the housetops steps the girl with rosy cheeks. The morning breeze bears the scent of honeycomb and bark. From the ocean's rim shoots the sun's first burning spark. In a fly's wing space, I see the world I left, a world of pain. And I brush his hand with my lips as he fills my cup again. In a fly's wing space, I see the world I left, a world of pain. And I brush his hand with my lips as he fills my cup again.
I want to tell you all a very important thing, which each one of you must remember very well. It is a fact that I am the Lord of the universe. I am omnipresent, and yet I suffer immensely and undergo great humiliation. My suffering to you may just appear to be physical or mental, but it is always universal for everyone and everything. The question then arises is, why this suffering? This is of fundamental importance for you all to understand. This will lead you to love me the way I should be loved. The 5 perfect masters are enough to run the affairs of this world, but they cannot take upon themselves the sufferings of this world. For this sole reason, they precipitate my advent. I have been made to take this form by the 5 perfect masters of the age to bear the cross and to undergo humiliation. My suffering and humiliation is actually the outcome of my divine sense of humor. To suffer and get humiliated is my responsibility as the avatar of the age, and it has been the same in all my previous advents. In each advent of mine, I suffered, and my divine sense of humor sustained me.
Once we were there, Baba brought out of his room, and again we had our wedding bands, which we placed in Baba's hands. We blessed them, and then we exchanged rings. And we were given a garland to garland Baba with. So then Baba turns to us and says, "What about?"
We offered the garland to Baba.
Offered the garland.
And then after this, and Baba looked towards us and said, "What about to each other?"
Garlanding each other.
And there were no plans were made for that. I mean, of course, the garlands were only for Baba. That's how,
Yeah. So, of course, his lovers had come by and placed a lot of flowers and garlands at his feet. So Baba just points to the pile and says, "Pick one up from there and garland each other."
So that's what we picked up, the 2 garlands, and we garlanded each other.
Then
And then the cake was, Arnavas brought the
cake.
cake.
Which we've cut in front of Baba.
Baba held a knife on one side, and they were
And then a few days later, with Baba, we were fortunate to get to visit Baba in his room. Baba, on the cake there were 2 roses made out of icing as decoration, which Anawaz had kept. She saved them. And Baba asked her to bring them. And he gave them to us and he said, you eat one rose on your 25th anniversary, which we have, and the next on your 50th. So, that's it.
So I gave you the first bite. I said, this is
And then just to finish it off, one day again with Baba in his room, he says, I'll bless you with a son and name him Merwan. So, thank you, Baba. And after a little while, Baba says, you know, my warehouse is full of souls waiting to take birth. So make it 2 boys. I'll bless you with 2 boys. Thank Baba, he didn't say a dozen. Anyway, then he said, you know, there'll be souls like Love and Kush, who are sons of Ram. Then after a little while he says, no, even better. There'll be souls like Prahlad and Dhruv. Then he turns to me, knowing what an ignorant guy I was. He says, do you know who Prahlad and Dhruv are, Dara? As far as I was concerned, they could have been Batman and Robin. So he says, well, ask your wife. She's from a Hindu background, she would know. So that was it.
Yeah. So again, we're visiting Baba one of these days. Actually, so it wasn't like that we got married and Baba sent me with Dara. No, I stayed back as I wasn't feeling well. Because Baba wanted us to know each other. He stayed at Vilu's and he would come there and we'll sit at Baba's garden, or Baba will give us his car to take us to visit relations in Ahmednagar. Or even he one day sent us to Aurangabad. I think that's how we came to sort of gradually know each other. So one day we came back from somewhere in Baba's room. Baba said, do you love each other? So, I mean, you know, like, you don't say no. That's okay. So we kind of both nodded in our heads like that. So Baba, and Mehra is there.
I don't think Mehra was there.
And Mani, and my mother. Most of the time, all the ladies came whenever we, you know, or Baba will call. So I said, Mehra was there, Mehra is
This is it. The Heckle and Jekyll show.
So Baba said, Dad doesn't want me to tell this one. He said, do you love each other? I said, Dila kind of nodded. So Baba said, so kiss. So I turned around and Baba's telling you, it doesn't matter, you Hindu girl, all covered up, doesn't matter, you kiss. So I went there and gave him a kiss on his cheek and he did the same thing. Baba had this look on his face. 2 people in love, that's how they're supposed to kiss. Should we go?
Just to finish, one day Baba tells me, just to let me know it by no chance that this all happened. He says, you know, Dara, this is what she had narrated earlier, when Amrit was a little baby, and when I was in Dehradun visiting her family, her mother brought her and placed her in my lap for my blessings. That's the day I chose her for you.
We're talking about Baba's childhood friend, Bailey. And Bailey claims that he was born a couple of days after Baba was born, 25th Feb, Baba's birthday, 1894. And Bailey was born on 21st of March, which is a very important day in the Iranian calendar, what we call as Navroz, Jamshedi Navroz, or a New Year day. And he was born in the same hospital, on the same bed, under the same surgeon and the same nurse, it's the same ward, you know, of course a different mother. He was so close to Baba that they would be like bum chums. Early in the morning when Meher Baba would be reciting his prayers, the Avastan prayers, he would be the first one to cycle at his home and listen to the prayers. And the prayers were so melodious. Baba used to sing so beautifully the prayers, Parsi prayers, that even the early morning vendors like the milkman and the bread man would wait for a while. When the bicycle, they would wait for a while, listen to those beautiful words, and then go on their business. And he was in the same school, obviously, the same class, and they used to play around together. And whenever they return from the school, obviously Bailey, being the so-called naughty one, would be held back for something, lessons not done, homework not done, punished. And Meherwan, he was called Meherwan at that time, Meherwan or even Meher, he would reprimand Bailey and say that, no, this is not the way it should be, you should do your work. Baba at heart was a very kind person, a very magnanimous person. And Bailey says that even in school, if it would come to his ears that certain boy requires a certain notebook or a pen or a pencil or an eraser or something, he would see to it that he gets it. So anybody who wants anything, a person who is sick and cannot afford to go to a doctor, he would personally make him sit in a rickshaw and take him to the doctor and all that. So he had an organization, you may say, or an institution, which is called the Secret 17. And that attribute of Baba, I think, continued all through his life, that many times he would say certain things to the women bundle and he would say something else to the men, and who you will not know what is happening. And the same thing happened with Baba's book, that he would ask somebody to put it in some locker, and the second person to bring it out, and third person to put it somewhere else, and so nobody knows what's happening. So the Secret 17 says that he had 8 people were like helpers. And what they would do is, so helpers would be the ones who would be giving finance, money to Baba for helping somebody else. And the servers would be the ones who would scout around and go into the intimacy of family, who's not having what, who's poor, who needs money, who needs what. So they would find out all these things and report to Baba. And then from the money of the helpers and the information, the CID sort of thing, CIA, whatever, from the servers, he would be helping those persons monetarily or otherwise. But the beauty of this Secret 17 is, okay, there were 8 plus 8, 16, and Baba 17. So it was like that, Secret 17. So the helpers, each of them, 8 of them, would not know, the one helper would not know who are the 7 other helpers and the 8 other servers. And in the same way, the servers would not know the other servers and the 8 helpers. Am I making sense? All right. So this was done in a very secret manner. Only Baba knew who all were, and they were supposed to simply give the money, and they were supposed to report who needs what. And the best part is that the person who got the help and the benevolence did not know from where this compassion and benevolence flowed. And that was exactly what Baba would do in a famine or a drought or some area. He would just go with his mandli and just give the blankets and grains or whatever and just pass over incognito. Everything was being done incognito. Nobody knows that his father, Sheryanji, was behind all this. That's the important thing. He fulfilled all these desires of Meherwan because he loved Meherwan with all his heart and he had total faith in what Meherwan did. Sheryaji never placed any restriction on Meherwan in any way and pampered his every wish to such an extent that in spite of Shirinmai's objections, very commonplace thing, he would pay no heed to her tantrums and would secretly give Meherwan all that he asked for. So the money that flowed actually was from Sheryaji's funds because he had a lot of business. So Sheryaji gave assistance to Meherwan, and that is how Meherwan could do all these things.
Even though I was born in Ahmednagar in 1944 and spent the first 13 years of my life in Nagar before going to England, sadly, there weren't too many times that I can recollect meeting Baba. Of course, there was a good chunk of time when Baba wasn't at Mirzad or Mehrabad. He was away traveling. Whenever I did get the opportunity to meet Baba, it was, for me as a youngster, it was like going to meet another member of the family. In fact, I would address Baba as Uncle Baba. So one of the occasions that I remember being taken to meet Baba, firstly we would always be told to be on our best behavior when you're going to meet somebody important. And so when we'd arrive on this occasion, it was at Merazad. Of course, we were dressed up in our Sunday best, so to speak, and then told, just behave yourself, don't fool around. So when we approached Baba, we would be very nervous and stiff. And Baba would immediately home onto this and would want us to act childlike with him. And so he would beckon me towards him. And as soon as I got close enough to him, he started to tickle me. So of course, before I knew it, I was clambering into his lap. And then Baba says, he would of course ask after me how I was, how are things at school. And then Baba would say, well, you want to play some games? And I say, yes, Baba, of course. So the games that one could play, simple games that we played sitting in his lap, was where one held out the palm of one's hand and you withdraw the hand before you can slap it. So this is one of the games I would play with Baba. And of course, every time, I would end up being the loser. And the other game was where you conceal the fingers of one hand and cup it in the other hand, and the person is supposed to get hold of your middle finger. And again, I would always end up the loser. And being a little child, that wasn't good for my ego. So I accused Baba of cheating. I said, Baba, it's not fair, you're cheating. And Baba looked so surprised. And he turned to Mani Auntie and said, look at this boy. I'm God and he's calling me a cheat. So I don't know where it came from, of course, Baba. But I said, no, Baba, you're not cheating as God, you're cheating as my uncle. And Baba embraced me, patted me, and one of our main attractions of going to Merazad or wherever Baba was, of course, initially was to meet Baba, but our real interest was to be with Mani Auntie. She was fun to be with. So of course we dash off then with Mani Auntie, and she would take us out in the yard and play games with us, and she had kept these pet chipmunks and she would show them to us. So this is one occasion that I can recollect. And on another occasion, I was at school and it was the lunch break. So after having our tiffin lunch, together with some of my friends, we went out in the schoolyard to play marbles. And I was waiting for my turn, when I noticed on the road running outside the school, Baba's car passing. It was, in those days there were very few cars in Ahmednagar, and Baba's car was very, very easy to recognize, the big Chevrolet car. And to my amazement, it stopped just outside the school gate, and somebody got out from the back and beckoned me to the car. So I ran towards the car, and Baba was seated in the front. So the door was open, and Baba sort of put his feet out and asked me to come close to him, which I did. The first thing Baba did was put his hand on my head, and I could see Baba's expression change to being a little annoyed. So Baba gestured, and of course somebody interpreted Baba's gestures to say that you're playing out in the sun. when your head is hot, you should cover your head. And then, after sort of being told off, so to speak, Baba's expression then changed and said, what were you doing? So I said, Baba, playing marbles. Oh, I'm very fond of marbles, Baba said. Show me your marbles. So fortunately, I had a pocket full of marbles, so I pulled them out and poured it into Baba's hand. And he picked up the marbles, he looked at them and said, oh, nice colorful marbles. And then returned them to me and sent me back on my way to play. I say, I wish I had the presence of mind of keeping those marbles. I didn't. And then another time as a child that comes to mind was in 1954 during the Sahavas at Mehrabad. As I mentioned yesterday, Baba would give Vilu in charge of the catering for such occasions, especially when it involved Westerners, because she was good at sort of dealing with Western food. So Baba asked her to do the catering. So Vilu had set up her kitchen up on Mehrabad Hill, where Mansari's kitchen is, and every evening, of course, she would go there to supervise, and she would take me along, as well as her youngest daughter, Franny, who was about the same age as me. So we'd always be together. So we'd go with Vilu, and we'd just mingle with the crowd and watch. And on this particular occasion, we came across Baba playing table tennis. There was a table tennis table under the tin shed in front of Mansari's, and Baba was playing table tennis with some of the Western men. And as soon as he saw me, he said, good, now you become the ball boy. You chase the ball and bring it back to the table. So of course I would wait for my chance, and as soon as somebody missed his shot and the ball went flying, I would run after the ball, and instead of returning it back to the person whose time it was to serve, I would always go and give it to Baba. And for my troubles, I would get a little pat on my head with his table tennis racket. And then during the same Sahavas program in Wadia Park, when Baba gave that Mash Darshan program, I had joined the queue for Baba's Darshan. And then it was my turn when I came up to Baba to get my prasad, Baba said, good, you're here, help me distribute the prasad. Well, I didn't get very far. I just couldn't keep up with Baba. So after a little while, Baba said, no good. So he handed me my prasad and sent me on my way. We came from England in 1964 to 65. One of the days, probably the third or fourth visit with Baba in Mandi Hall, I would always say greet Baba and then sit against the wall on that thin mat where the rest of the Mandi would sit. And I guess after having lived all those few years in England, I was no longer used to sitting on the floor for very long. So after a little while, my feet would start to hurt, and I would sort of shift this way and that way, And Baba noticed this. So he turns to me and he asked me, Dara, would you like to sit in a chair? And here I am, 20-year-old, having trouble sitting on the floor, while these guys much older than me, sitting comfortably, with no discomfort. So of course, my ego wouldn't let me say, yes, Baba, thank you. I said, no, Baba, no, it's okay. Then again, after a little while, my legs started to hurt, so I would again wiggle this way and that way. So Baba again turned to me and said, why don't you sit in a chair? And this is what Amrit wants me to say. I said something quite stupid at the time. I said, Baba, it's okay, I don't mind suffering.
So Baba gave him.
Baba beamed. He beamed and said, I'm very happy with your answer. And Amrit would like me to say a few days later, he said he was going to get me married to her. But not like that.
Whenever he complains, I say, listen, you asked for it.
But now, since you brought me back to that time period, since we're here, sort of on Francis' land here, so to speak, there's one story I want to narrate concerning Francis. After living those years in England before coming to visit Baba, I got a liking for Western pop music, rock and roll. So the word got to Baba that Dara's fond of music. So one day when I entered Mandi Hall and after greeting Baba, Baba said, Dara, I hear you like music. I said, yes, Baba, I'm fond of music, although I can't play any instrument. So Baba said, well, go and discuss music with Francis. And I said, okay, Baba. Now, Francis was in his room. Now, I knew where Francis was. So I went up to that little cottage. His room was on the left. And I could see the smoke coming out of his room. So I knew I was in the right place. So as I enter, Francis is writing something. And he gets up and he says, yes, Dara. And I tell Francis, Baba sent me here to discuss music with you. So Francis said, yes. What kind of music? So I said, well, Francis, rock and roll. So he looked a little mystified. And I said, Francis, the Beatles, the Stones, surely you've heard of them? And he looked at me quizzically. And I said, Francis, are you a square? You haven't heard of rock and roll and the Beatles? So he had enough of me. So he had a little harmonium. So he walks up to the harmonium and says, can you play this? I said, no, Francis, I don't play any instrument. He says, you've heard, ghazals? I said, no, Francis, I can't sing. So he played his harmonium and recited a poem of his, which he had written along. And after that, of course, he had enough of me. And he said, come on, let's go back to Mandi Hall. And he escorted me back into Mandi Hall, sort of, depositing me back to Baba. Baba seemed quite surprised to see me back there so soon. So he turns to Francis and says, what happened? So he says, Baba, the kind of music that he's talking about, I know nothing about. And I'm talking about poetry and ghazals, which he doesn't seem to appreciate. And on top of it, he calls me a square. So Baba looks at me and says, you called him a square? So I said, Baba, it means old-fashioned. So Baba says, is that so? Well, I'm the ancient one. What will you call me?
Baba, some in the group here were inspired by your explanations of the plains yesterday, and they have a song they'd like to sing for you. Baba says, very good. These explanations have given him a headache. So your singing will help him.
We are gross plain, going on first plane, innocent as a rose. Bachelor dandies, drinkers of brandy, any old thing that goes. We are gross plain, going on first plane, trying to keep in line. Eager young lads and roues and cats, we're fond of food and wine. Totally unprepared were we to meet you face to face. Vividly we'll recall this day, all thanks to Baba's grace. Now we're not much older or wiser, repenting is what we do. Baba, you are love personified, we'll depend on you.
Baba asks, are there any more newcomers today?
Only two, Baba. They may be here already. This is Professor Omega and Professor Backenmeyer.
Baba says you have very good names. Where are you from?
New York.
Yes, Mr. Baba. We're from New York.
Baba says you are very tricky. But he is tricky too. Baba says he is hoping you can stay for dinner. We are having a very special dish. Lamb and feta. Lamb and feta. Baba says you do not look happy. Come. You have some questions to ask him?
My mind's gone blank.
Who are you?
Baba says, from the beginningless beginning, I asked one question. Who am I? And I gave one answer. I am God. All other questions and answers do not interest me. Still, to please you, I will listen to questions and answer them.
No questions, no questions.
Baba says he is very happy that you are here. He says, I have always known you. You have always been searching for the truth. Over many lifetimes, you have been searching. And now, you have found it. Only love can bring you to me. And it has brought you. Now, let's have a song.
On first plane, going on first plane, finally here with you. Who would have thought your hearts would be caught and filling up to the brim? When that happens, after it happens, nothing is quite the same. Somehow you know you'll jump up and go whenever he calls your name. God are your old ideas. years of life, your old ideas grow dim. Suddenly Baba's in your life, and you belong to him. You may think this kind of adventure never may come to you. All along we knew you had to wait alive. Just wait alive, and he'll take care of you.